Among history's most remarkable figures, two men stand whose ideas reshaped the world and ignited revolutions of thought: Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Let us begin with the first, Karl Marx. Karl Marx was born on the 5th of May in the year 1818 in the city of Trier, in what was then the Kingdom of Prussia. What shaped this boy from a modest home into one of the most revolutionary thinkers of all time? What drove him to challenge the powerful, question entire systems, and spend his life in exile? And how did his pen spark movements that would alter the course of empires and ideologies forever? Please watch my full video until the end, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please make sure to share it with your friends. Thank you. Now, let us dive into the full story. Karl Marx was born into a family rooted in both faith and change. His father, Heinrich Marx, a lawyer, had converted from Judaism to Christianity to preserve his legal career, while his mother, Henriette Pressburg, came from a line of rabbis and merchants. From early on, Karl was exposed to religious complexity, social contradictions, and legal logic, threads that would later weave into his radical vision of the world. As a boy, he was educated privately and then attended Trier High School, where liberal teachers fostered his critical mind. Though not yet aware of it, Marx's journey into philosophy and politics had already begun, quietly shaped by the ideals of Enlightenment thinkers and the subtle cracks forming in Europe's old order. Karl Marx entered the world as the third of 9 children in a home steeped in tradition, intellect, and tension. Born into a Jewish family that had recently converted to Christianity, he was baptized into the Lutheran Church at the age of 6, alongside his siblings. His father's decision to convert was not spiritual, but strategic, a move required to continue practicing law in a Prussian system that denied legal careers to Jews. Karl's father, Heinrich Marx, was a lawyer with a sharp legal mind and a passion for Enlightenment philosophy. Influenced by the writings of Voltaire and Immanuel Kant, Heinrich believed deeply in reason, reform, and constitutional law. His guidance shaped Karl's early interest in justice, logic, and societal systems. Meanwhile, Karl's mother, Henriette Pressburg, came from a prosperous Dutch family related to the founders of the Philips electronics dynasty. Though less intellectually engaged, she provided stability amid political and financial uncertainty. The Marx family enjoyed a comfortable middle-class life in Trier, complete with vineyard holdings and a 10-room home near the ancient Porta Nigra. Yet even in these secure surroundings, young Karl grew up watching how faith, class, and law could collide, especially as liberal teachers at his school came under scrutiny for spreading radical ideas. These early encounters planted questions in Karl's mind, questions about power, religion, and the meaning of freedom that would grow louder in the years to come. At just 16 years old, Karl Marx left Trier for the University of Bonn, initially aiming to study philosophy and literature. But under his father's insistence, he enrolled in law, a more practical path. Despite the pressure, Marx's rebellious spirit soon surfaced. He joined the Poets' Club, a group of radical thinkers, and became involved in student societies that clashed with Prussian authorities. He even engaged in a duel, revealing both his boldness and his readiness to defend his ideas, even at personal risk. Concerned by his son's unruly behavior and poor academic performance, Heinrich Marx transferred Karl to the University of Berlin, a stricter and more intellectual environment. It was there that Karl truly encountered the world of philosophy. At Berlin, he discovered the works of Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, whose complex dialectical method would profoundly shape his worldview. Karl joined the Young Hegelians, a circle of radical philosophers who sought to challenge religious orthodoxy, monarchy, and the foundations of traditional society. This period transformed Marx from a curious student into a serious thinker. He began to explore the relationship between ideas and material conditions, a question that would stay with him for life. He also formed early friendships with intellectuals like Bruno Bauer and Adolf Rutenberg, who encouraged him to push boundaries. By the time he completed his doctoral thesis in 1841, Marx had already rejected the idea of passive academia. He wanted action and ideas that could ignite it. After earning his doctorate in the spring of 1841, Karl Marx hoped for an academic career, but political winds were shifting. The Prussian government viewed his ideas and the radical young Hegelians he associated with as a threat. Blocked from university appointments, Marx turned to writing. In 1842, he became editor of the Rheinische Zeitung, a bold newspaper in Cologne that questioned monarchy, censorship, and capitalism. Though under constant government scrutiny, Marx used its pages to expose injustice, challenge authority, and sharpen his evolving views on economics and society. His fearless reporting drew the attention and anger of authorities. The paper was censored, and by early 1843 it was shut down entirely. Undeterred, Marx left for Paris, where he joined Deutsche Französische Jahrbucher, a radical journal founded to unite German and French revolutionaries. There, he wrote essays that questioned religion, law, and property, and that began to reveal his embrace of communism. Paris was also where Karl's ideas took sharper form. Surrounded by socialist thinkers, revolutionary refugees, and working-class unrest, he saw firsthand the forces that shaped inequality. And in 1844, a chance meeting changed everything. He met Friedrich Engels at a Parisian cafe. The two instantly connected. Engels showed Marx's writings on workers in England, and Marx recognized in him a lifelong ally. This Paris chapter closed with Marx being expelled from France, but he left with a new worldview and a powerful partner. In the bustling streets of Paris during the mid-1840s, Karl Marx found himself at the crossroads of philosophy, revolution, and personal transformation. After being expelled from Cologne, he settled in Paris with his wife Jenny and their newborn daughter. The city teemed with radical thought, a hub where exiled revolutionaries, anarchists, and philosophers debated late into the night. Marx dove into this intellectual current, studying French socialism, British political economy, and the failures of European liberalism. It was during this fertile period that Marx began crafting the foundations of what would become Marxism. He penned his economic and philosophic manuscripts of 1844, exploring concepts like alienated labor and class struggle. These writings revealed a man attempting to understand why societies allowed so many to suffer while so few controlled so much. But the true turning point came on the 28th of August in the year 1844, when Karl Marx met Friedrich Engels at the Café de la Régence. Engels had just published The Condition of the Working Class in England, and his findings resonated deeply with Marx's growing convictions. Their conversation ignited an intellectual and emotional bond that would last for decades. Together, they criticized fellow thinkers, including Bruno Bauer, and published The Holy Family, a work that blended satire with serious philosophy. Though Paris would soon expel Marx under political pressure, the ideas he nurtured there and the partnership he began would shape the course of revolutionary history. Expelled from France, in early 1845, Karl Marx sought refuge in Brussels, Belgium. There, under the condition that he refrain from publishing on contemporary politics, he focused his energy on deeper theoretical work. The calm of Brussels gave Marx space to refine his developing ideas. ideas that would soon solidify into a new revolutionary doctrine. In this quiet city, Marx began to crystallize what would become the foundations of historical materialism. Reunited with Friedrich Engels, who moved to Brussels later that same year, Marx found both intellectual and emotional support. The two men worked tirelessly, dissecting the ideas of earlier philosophers and critiquing both utopian socialism and idealist philosophy. Their joint project, the German ideology, completed in 1846, marked a major shift, breaking from their Hegelian roots and declaring material conditions, not abstract ideas, as the true engine of history. At the same time, Marx composed the Theses on Feuerbach, a sharp critique of philosophical materialism that culminated in his bold declaration: "The philosophers have only interpreted the world, the point is to change it." These writings weren't just theoretical, they laid the groundwork for action. Through correspondence and meetings, Marx connected with radical circles across Europe, including the League of the Just, which he and Engels would soon help transform into the more structured and overtly political Communist League. Brussels, though a temporary home, became the birthplace of Marxist theory, a turning point where thought and revolution fused. By the end of 1847, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels stood on the edge of a turning point. The secretive League of the Just had been restructured and renamed the Communist League, a public-facing organization aimed at uniting workers across borders under one revolutionary banner. Marx and Engels were commissioned to write its political platform. The result would become one of the most influential documents in modern history, the Communist Manifesto. Written over the course of just a few weeks, the Manifesto of the Communist Party was published in German on the 21st of February in the year 1848. Its opening words thundered, "A specter is haunting Europe, the specter of communism." With striking clarity, Marx laid out his theory of history as class struggle, predicted the fall of the bourgeoisie, and called for the workers of the world to unite. The pamphlet's impact was immediate. Its bold language and urgent tone gave shape to a growing restlessness among workers and radicals across Europe. That same year, revolutions swept through France, the German states, Italy, and the Austrian Empire. Marx, now fueled by both theory and real-world upheaval, threw himself into the moment. He relocated to Cologne, where he launched a new newspaper, New Rheinische Zeitung, aimed at advancing the revolutionary cause. In these fiery months, Marx's ideas leapt from printed words into action. The Communist Manifesto was no longer just a theory, it was a call to arms. The year 1848 erupted with revolution. Across Europe, barricades rose, monarchies trembled, and for a brief moment, it seemed that the people might seize control of history. Karl Marx returned to Germany, hopeful that this unrest would realize the ideas outlined in the Communist Manifesto. Settling in Cologne, he founded New Rheinische Zeitung, a bold daily paper where he served as editor, writer, and ideological force. Marx poured energy into each edition, using the paper to expose feudal injustice, criticize Prussian reactionaries, and support democratic and socialist movements. Though technically independent, the paper was deeply shaped by Marx's voice. Friedrich Engels later described it as a simple dictatorship by Marx. Yet his fierce words came with consequence. He was tried in court multiple times for press offenses and sedition, though acquitted each time. But governments across Europe were clamping down. In Belgium, Marx was accused of funding worker insurrections and was arrested. In Germany, the revolution collapsed under pressure from royalist forces. And in Prussia, authorities shut down his newspaper and expelled him in May 1849. Briefly returning to Paris, Marx found the city gripped by counter-revolution and disease, unsafe for both his family and his cause. With no nation willing to shelter him, Karl Marx made a fateful decision. In August 1849, he crossed the Channel to England. There, in the foggy streets of London, his exile would begin, but his greatest intellectual work still lay ahead. When Karl Marx arrived in London in the late summer of 1849, he found no refuge of comfort, only struggle. Political exile had stripped him of income and security. He moved his family into modest, cramped quarters in Soho, an immigrant-dense neighborhood marked by poverty. The Marx household often went without heat, shoes, or sufficient food. Several of their children died young, victims of the harsh conditions. Still, Marx refused to abandon his intellectual mission. While Jenny Marx managed the chaos of their home, Karl buried himself in books at the British Museum's reading room, spending hours among volumes on history, economics, and philosophy. His belief in revolutionary change had not waned, but the means of achieving it would now shift from street uprisings to scholarly resistance. During these years, Friedrich Engels became Marx's lifeline. Engels, working for his father's textile firm in Manchester, sent regular financial support, often the only thing keeping Marx's family afloat. Despite the hardship, Marx began contributing to international newspapers, especially the New York Daily Tribune, writing hundreds of articles to explain European politics to American readers. His work dissected empire, exposed class dynamics, and critiqued global capitalism, all while struggling to afford basic necessities at home. These were bleak years, marked by grief and hunger. Yet they hardened Marx's resolve. He wasn't just writing theory, he was living the consequences of the system he aimed to destroy. London became the crucible where his radical ideas were tempered by lived suffering. Throughout the 1850s, Karl Marx's pen became his weapon. Writing from a small flat in Dean Street, he served as a European correspondent for the New York Daily Tribune, one of the most widely read papers in the United States. Through his articles, Marx explained European revolutions, class struggles, and imperial ambitions to an American audience. His sharp critiques of capitalist society and colonial violence expanded his reach far beyond Europe. But while his words traveled the world, life at home remained bitter. Poverty haunted the Marx family. Jenny, his wife, endured miscarriages, illness, and the deaths of their children. Their only source of reliable financial help came from Friedrich Engels, who continued sending funds from Manchester. Yet even this support could not prevent constant debt, hunger, and heartbreak. At one point, the family had to pawn nearly all of their belongings, including children's clothes and bedding. Even within the radical community, Marx faced opposition. He joined the German Workers' Educational Society and clashed with fellow exiles who favored quicker, more spontaneous revolutions. Marx, ever the strategist, insisted on careful analysis and preparation. These tensions led to personal rifts and resignations. By 1852, he also published the 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte, a masterwork that blended political commentary with historical theory, introducing concepts like class dictatorship and revolutionary cycles. Despite being isolated and often overwhelmed, Marx pressed on. He saw his suffering not as distraction, but as proof that his theory of exploitation was no abstract idea. It was reality, painfully lived. In the autumn of 1864, Karl Marx stepped back into the organizational spotlight. He was invited to the founding meeting of the International Working Men's Association in London, soon known as the First International. This was no mere theory group. It aimed to unite trade unions, socialist thinkers, and labor activists from across Europe and beyond. Marx was elected to its General Council, and almost immediately he became its intellectual backbone. He drafted key addresses, wrote its foundational statutes, and used the platform to extend his influence among workers' movements. Yet the First International was not a unified body. Its members included anarchists, mutualists, syndicalists, and Marxists, all with competing visions for revolution. At the center of these tensions stood a powerful rival, Mikhail Bakunin, the Russian anarchist who rejected the idea of any centralized authority, including Marx's version of worker-led governance. What followed was a bitter ideological feud. Marx believed in building worker power through structured political means, parties, strategy, and class alliances. Bakunin argued for immediate, decentralized revolt. Their battle played out in debates, letters, and pamphlets, fracturing the International. Marx eventually prevailed, engineering a vote to relocate the General Council to New York in 1872, a tactical move that effectively sidelined Bakunin and his supporters. But victory came at a cost. The relocation weakened the organization, and within a few years, the First International dissolved. Still, for Marx, it was a critical arena where ideas were tested, alliances were forged, and the dream of international worker unity came within reach. After decades of study and hardship, Karl Marx was ready to release his most ambitious work, a systematic critique of capitalism itself. In the mid-1860s, he focused all his energy on completing the first volume of Das Kapital. Day after day, he sat in the British Museum's reading room, surrounded by ledgers, economic reports, and historical records, tracing the patterns of industrial labor, exploitation, and profit. Published in 1867, Das Kapital, Volume 1 examined how capital operated, from surplus value and wage labor to the cycles of crisis that capitalism inevitably created. It was dense, analytical, and unlike any economic writing of its time. Rather than appealing to sentiment, Marx aimed for scientific precision, hoping to lay bare the mechanics of a system that, in his eyes, devoured human dignity. The book did not sell widely at first, but it attracted attention among revolutionaries, economists, and intellectuals. Demand for a Russian translation soon followed, and interest grew as labor movements across Europe embraced Marx's ideas. He continued working on volumes 2 and 3, though they remained incomplete during his lifetime. Engels, after Marx's death, would take on the task of editing and publishing them. More than a book, Das Kapital became a blueprint, a tool for understanding not just economics, but power itself. It revealed capitalism not as a natural order, but as a historical phase with contradictions bound to unravel. For Marx, this work was not just a legacy, it was a weapon, placed in the hands of the working class. As the 1870s progressed, Karl Marx's health began to decline, but his political pen remained sharp. He continued to write on urgent global matters, focusing especially on Germany and Russia, two nations where socialism faced very different paths. One of his most notable later works was Critique of the Gotha Program, written in 1875. In it, Marx sharply criticized compromises made by German socialists, warning them not to water down revolutionary ideals for the sake of political unity. He famously reaffirmed the goal of communism with a powerful phrase, "From each according to his ability, to each according to his need." But Marx was not only looking westward. Increasingly, he turned his attention to Russia, where debates were raging over whether socialism could bypass the capitalist stage altogether. In 1881, Marx corresponded with Russian activist Vera Zasulich. She had asked whether Russia's traditional village communes, known as Mir, could serve as the foundation for a socialist future. Marx's reply was cautiously optimistic. He believed that, if protected from capitalist pressures, the communal structure might offer Russia a unique path to communism without first enduring the brutalities of industrial capitalism. Privately, Marx grew fascinated with anthropology and the idea that future societies might echo the communal systems of humanity's ancient past. Though often portrayed as rigid, his later writings reveal flexibility, curiosity, and deep moral concern. Even as illness shadowed his final years, Marx remained immersed in the future, still seeking the keys to revolution from the fragments of history. After Karl Marx's passing in the year 1883, the world began to wrestle with his legacy. To some, he was a visionary who offered the oppressed a voice and a roadmap to justice. To others, he was a dangerous agitator whose theories challenged the very foundations of civilization. His ideas, once printed in radical papers and whispered in exile, now stood at the heart of debates shaping the modern world. Friedrich Engels, his closest collaborator and friend, took up the role of guardian to their shared intellectual legacy. He edited and published the remaining volumes of Das Kapital, ensuring that Marx's unfinished economic theories reached new generations of thinkers and activists. As socialism spread across Europe, different factions, from moderate social democrats to revolutionary communists, claimed Marx as their own, each interpreting his writings through different lenses. In the 20th century, his name would become even more polarizing. Marxist theory inspired revolutions from Russia to China, but it was also invoked by authoritarian regimes that distorted his ideas to suit political power. This created deep divides. Was Marx the father of liberation or the architect of tyranny? Even today, Karl Marx remains a subject of fierce debate. Universities study his writings as foundational texts in sociology, economics, and political science. Activists cite his analysis of inequality in fights for labor rights and economic reform. His critics accuse him of fostering division and revolution. Whatever the view, one truth is certain: Karl Marx did not vanish with his death. He became an idea that refused to die. In his final years, Karl Marx's health deteriorated due to years of hardship, poor living conditions, and constant intellectual labor. He suffered from bronchitis and liver problems, but remained mentally sharp, still engaging with political thinkers across Europe. The loss of his beloved wife Jenny in December 1881 deeply affected him, and just over a year later, he passed away. Karl Marx died on the 14th of March in the year 1883 in London, England. He was buried in Highgate Cemetery, surrounded by a few loyal companions. Friedrich Engels gave a moving eulogy, calling Marx the most calumniated man of his time, yet also the man of science. Marx's death marked not an end, but a continuation. Engels edited and published the remaining volumes of Das Kapital, and revolutionary thinkers soon adopted Marx's work. By the early 20th century, his name had become a rallying cry, from Lenin in Russia to Rosa Luxemburg in Germany. Academically, Marx became one of the pillars of modern sociology and economics. His terms like class struggle and surplus value reshaped how the world discussed power and injustice. Even his critics couldn't ignore the weight of his influence. To this day, debates around capitalism and justice still echo with his words. Whether praised or opposed, Karl Marx remains a figure whose fierce ideas continue to challenge and inspire. Let us now turn to another remarkable figure of royal descent. Friedrich Engels was born on the 28th of November in the year 1820 in Barmen, in the Kingdom of Prussia, now part of modern-day Wuppertal, Germany. What shaped this privileged young man into a lifelong critic of privilege itself? How did a son of industrial wealth come to dedicate his life to the struggle of the working class? And what inner contradictions fueled the fire of someone who moved between two worlds, the world of capital and the world of revolution? Friedrich Engels was the eldest son of a devoutly Protestant and deeply conservative industrialist family. His father, Friedrich Engels Sr., co-owned a large textile firm with operations in both Germany and England. The Engels household embodied the ideals of discipline, obedience, and piety, values meant to prepare the young Friedrich for a future as heir to the family business. But from early on, he showed signs of questioning the narrow world into which he had been born. Raised between business expectations and religious orthodoxy, Engels received a strict Lutheran education. Yet within this rigid structure, he developed a keen mind and a rebellious curiosity. His mother, Elisabeth Franziska Morische van Haar, was more gentle and literary, offering young Friedrich a softer influence and encouraging his interest in poetry and language. By the time he reached adolescence, Engels had already begun to sense the gap between his family's wealth and the growing poverty around them. This tension would quietly smolder within him, waiting for the right spark, a spark that would eventually ignite into global revolution. Friedrich Engels' formal education began in Barmen and continued in nearby Elberfeld, where he enrolled in a gymnasium, a rigorous secondary school focused on classical studies. There he studied Latin, Greek, literature, and philosophy, excelling in languages and writing. His sharp intellect stood out, and his talent for mastering languages would eventually make him fluent in German, English, French, and even Italian and Spanish. This gift would later allow him to communicate across borders, influencing labor movements throughout Europe. Despite the conservative environment of his upbringing, Engels grew increasingly skeptical of organized religion. Lutheranism, the dominant faith in his family, taught obedience and salvation through grace. But Engels saw contradictions between its teachings and the suffering of the poor. He quietly began distancing himself from church doctrine, turning instead toward Enlightenment thinkers and German idealist philosophy. Around this time, he discovered the writings of Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Though Hegel himself had passed away in 1831, his philosophy of dialectics, the idea that change arises from conflict and contradiction, had left a deep impression on young German intellectuals. Engels absorbed these ideas eagerly, sensing in them a powerful framework for understanding social upheaval. At home, however, he remained outwardly obedient. His father expected him to enter the family business, not to challenge the moral structure of society. Engels kept his inner world hidden for the moment, walking a careful line between appearance and belief. But his mind was already expanding far beyond the boundaries of his education, shaped by a growing awareness of injustice and a hunger for a deeper truth that traditional schooling could not provide. At the age of 17, Friedrich Engels left formal schooling to begin an apprenticeship in commerce. A decision shaped by his father's will to mold him into a future industrialist. He was sent to Bremen, a bustling port city in northern Germany, where he joined a trading firm associated with the family's textile business. It was here, among merchants, factories, and dock workers, that Engels began his first-hand observation of the capitalist system in motion. Though still young, Engels kept a journal and contributed articles under a pseudonym to local newspapers. His writing revealed a growing awareness of economic inequality and a moral discomfort with the wealth he had inherited. The streets of Bremen showed him a world far removed from the comforts of barmen, workers living in overcrowded housing, children laboring in factories, and families scraping by on meager wages. This period also deepened his cultural horizons. Engels immersed himself in literature, reading works by Goethe, Schiller, Byron, and Shelley. He explored music, art, and philosophy, all while sharpening his prose style. Though outwardly fulfilling his role as a young businessman, he was inwardly transforming. His early exposure to working-class hardship planted the seeds of empathy and rebellion that would define his life. Bremen was a city of trade, but for Engels, it became a place of moral reckoning. He began to see the gears behind industry, not just machinery and markets, but human suffering, exploited labor, and silent injustice. This awakening was not yet a call to arms, but it was a turning point. The privileged son of a factory owner was starting to question the very system that promised him power. In the autumn of 1838, Friedrich Engels interrupted his business path to fulfill a year of compulsory military service. He was stationed in Berlin with the Household Artillery Guard, a prestigious regiment tied closely to Prussian royal authority. Though life in the barracks brought routine drills and strict discipline, it also gave Engels something far more valuable: proximity to intellectual life in the Prussian capital. During his time in Berlin, Engels enrolled in lectures at the University of Berlin as a guest student. He attended classes in philosophy, history, and the natural sciences, but it was Hegelian philosophy that most captivated him. Hegel's dialectical method, the idea that social and historical progress emerges from the clash of opposing forces, resonated deeply with Engels' growing dissatisfaction with the existing social order. He soon became acquainted with the young Hegelians, a group of radical thinkers who applied Hegel's ideas to criticize religion, monarchy, and social hierarchy. Among them were Ludwig Feuerbach and Bruno Bauer, whose critiques of theology and tradition gave Engels a sharper analytical edge. Through their influence, he moved from vague discomfort with the world around him to a more systematic, critical worldview. The barracks and the lecture halls made strange companions, yet together they forged a new path. By the end of his Berlin service in 1839, Engels had not only fulfilled his duty to the state, he had quietly pledged allegiance to a very different mission. He was no longer just the son of a factory owner. He was becoming a philosopher of dissent, ready to challenge the foundations of the very system that had trained him. In the summer of 1844, Friedrich Engels traveled to Paris, a city pulsing with revolutionary ideas, exile communities, and political cafes. It was here that he reconnected with a man he had met briefly 2 years earlier in Cologne, Karl Marx. Their second meeting would change both their lives forever. At the time, Marx was living in exile, writing for German-language journals and wrestling with his philosophical evolution. Engels brought with him sharp observations from industrial England, along with the manuscript of his recently completed work, The Condition of the Working Class in England. Marx was struck by Engels' empirical insight, his clarity of language, and his passionate critique of capitalism based on direct observation. The two men talked for days, walking the streets of Paris, debating in dimly lit cafes, and forming a rapid, deep intellectual alliance. Despite their different backgrounds, they shared a vision: the need to uncover the economic laws driving history and to empower the working class through knowledge and action. In each other, they found not just agreement, but reinforcement. Their collaboration formally began with The Holy Family, a critique of the young Hegelians published later that year. From this point forward, Marx and Engels worked as a pair writing letters, drafting political tracts, and developing the foundations of what would later be called scientific socialism. Paris was more than a setting. It was the forge where ideas became movement, and where Friedrich Engels stepped fully into his role as both a thinker and a revolutionary, no longer in the shadow of family duty, but side by side with a partner who shared his fire. By the time Friedrich Engels met Karl Marx again in Paris, he had already completed one of his most powerful works, The Condition of the Working Class in England. Based on his years living and working in Manchester, this book would become a foundational text in the study of industrial capitalism and labor exploitation. Engels had spent months walking the slums, speaking with workers, and observing firsthand the impact of the factory system. He recorded the overcrowded housing, deadly working conditions, and child labor that defined industrial life. His writing was not only journalistic, it was deeply personal. He had seen the cost of wealth with his own eyes, and he refused to let the suffering remain invisible. The book, written in German and published in 1845, exposed the brutal realities of England's industrial heart. It made a strong case that capitalism did not just create inequality, it systematically relied on it. Engels argued that progress for the few was built on the misery of the many, and that the working class would never achieve dignity without revolutionary change. Though the book received limited attention at first, it deeply impressed Marx and laid the groundwork for their joint theory of class struggle. For Engels, the project was both a moral reckoning and a declaration of loyalty, not to his class of birth, but to the workers whose lives had been crushed by the system his family helped build. With this publication, Friedrich Engels became more than an observer. He became a witness, a critic, and a committed revolutionary voice in the industrial age. In 1845, after his time in Paris and early collaboration with Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels returned to Manchester to rejoin his family's textile business. At first glance, it seemed like a retreat, a return to privilege, to the heart of the capitalist system he had just denounced in writing. But Engels had a plan. He would use his position inside the system to support its eventual undoing. For the next 2 decades, Engels led a double life. By day, he managed operations at Erman and Engels, the cotton mill his father co-owned. He dressed the part, attended meetings, and earned a steady income. By night, he transformed into a revolutionary thinker, writing letters to Marx, drafting essays on economics and politics, and reading voraciously. His earnings from Manchester would go on to fund Karl Marx's household and work for nearly 20 years. Engels was fully aware of the irony. He once joked that he was a capitalist by necessity, a communist by conviction. But beneath the humor was a serious strategy. His life in Manchester offered access to both financial means and continuous observation of working-class conditions, raw material for theory and revolution alike. He also deepened his personal ties to the working class through his relationship with Mary Burns, a spirited Irish factory worker and political radical. She guided him through the poorest neighborhoods, helping him stay connected to the human cost behind the factory walls. Manchester was more than just a place of business. For Engels, it became both a stage of compromise and a laboratory of revolution. He walked between 2 worlds, never forgetting which one he truly served. Throughout the late 1840s and into the following decades, Friedrich Engels maintained a rich and tireless correspondence with Karl Marx. Though separated by distance, Engels in Manchester and Marx in London, the two exchanged thousands of letters. These letters were more than friendly notes. They were lifelines of theory, political strategy, and intellectual growth. Engels would often finish his long workdays at the factory only to spend his evenings composing letters filled with political insight, economic data, and philosophical reflection. He regularly sent newspaper clippings, personal observations, and drafts of ideas to Marx. In return, Marx would share progress on his writings, questions about economic theory, and drafts for review. This exchange laid the foundation for one of the most enduring intellectual partnerships in modern history. Their bond was not merely academic, it was deeply personal. Engels often provided financial support when Marx's family faced hardship, paying rent, sending funds for food and medicine, and even covering publishing costs. He never demanded credit or recognition. His loyalty to Marx and to their shared vision was unwavering. Despite occasional differences in style or opinion, their mutual respect kept them aligned. Engels had a talent for making abstract ideas more accessible, while Marx focused on rigorous critique and systematic theory. Together, they sharpened each other's strengths and filled in each other's gaps. This period of close, sustained collaboration showed the world that revolutions do not always begin with banners and barricades. Sometimes they are born in ink, in the quiet power of ideas traded between two minds determined to change the world. In the closing months of 1847, Friedrich Engels and Karl Marx were commissioned by the newly formed Communist League to write a political pamphlet that would define their ideology. The result was a document that would echo through centuries, the Communist Manifesto. Though short in length, its ideas were explosive, a sharp, bold call for the working class to rise against the forces of capitalism. While Marx is often credited as the principal author, Engels' role was essential. His earlier draft, known as the Principles of Communism, provided much of the structure and content. Engels' clarity and directness helped shape the manifesto's famous opening line: "A specter is haunting Europe, the specter of communism." Together, the two men crafted a manifesto that was not just a political statement, but a new way of seeing the world. Published in February of 1848, the pamphlet outlined the history of class struggle, the nature of bourgeois society, and the urgent need for proletarian revolution. It concluded with a rousing slogan that would become immortal: "Workers of the world, unite!" Though its immediate political impact was limited, the manifesto placed Engels and Marx at the center of a growing global movement. Revolutions swept across Europe later that year, and while most were crushed, the groundwork for socialist organization had been laid. Engels had moved from observer to agitator. With the manifesto, he helped give voice to millions who had none. The call had been made not in whispers but in thunder, and it would never be taken back. In 1848, Europe was ablaze with revolutionary fervor. Inspired by demands for democracy, national unity, and workers' rights, uprisings erupted from Paris to Vienna. Friedrich Engels, no longer content with theory alone, plunged into action. Alongside Karl Marx, he returned to Germany to join the revolutionary movement firsthand. They took up leadership roles in the new Rheinische Zeitung, a radical newspaper published in Cologne. Engels contributed sharp editorials advocating armed resistance, land reform, and the overthrow of monarchic structures. His writing reflected a man who understood not only the mechanisms of capitalism, but also the urgency of revolt. The paper gave voice to the discontented masses and quickly drew the ire of authorities. As revolution spread to southwestern Germany, Engels joined the armed struggle. He became a military participant in the Baden-Palatinate uprising, fighting with the insurgent forces against the Prussian army. His courage and discipline earned respect from comrades, though the rebellion was ultimately crushed. Engels narrowly escaped capture, fleeing across the border into Switzerland. In the aftermath, he regrouped with Marx in exile. The defeat was sobering but not paralyzing. For Engels, it confirmed a critical lesson that revolutionary ideals must be paired with organized strategy and mass support. Though the uprisings had failed, they had also revealed cracks in the old order. The revolutionary year of 1848 was a turning point. Engels had tested his beliefs in the crucible of battle. He had witnessed both the courage of the oppressed and the brutality of the ruling class. And though the smoke of revolution had cleared, his resolve burned stronger than ever. After the failed revolutions of 1848, Friedrich Engels returned to Manchester in 1849, stepping back into the heart of industrial capitalism. Though it meant re-entering the very system he opposed, Engels made the calculated decision to resume work at his family's textile firm. The income he earned would serve not personal comfort, but political purpose, primarily to support Karl Marx, whose financial struggles threatened to halt his writing. For nearly 2 decades, Engels maintained this balancing act. By day, he oversaw accounts, managed production, and negotiated trade, all with the efficiency expected of a bourgeois industrialist. But in the privacy of his study, he remained a revolutionary. He continued corresponding with Marx, providing him not just money but critical insights into the realities of capitalist operations, factory management, and market behavior. Engels also maintained a detailed observational eye. Living in the city's industrial heart, he witnessed the worsening conditions of workers in an age of expanding imperialism and unregulated profit. Manchester's mills, chimneys, and crowded alleys served as a daily reminder of the inequality they were fighting to expose and dismantle. Despite the appearance of compliance, Engels had not softened. His work at the firm gave him rare access to the inner workings of capitalism, knowledge he shared liberally with Marx as he developed Das Kapital. Their partnership, fueled by Engels' labor and sacrifice, pushed forward the most comprehensive critique of capitalism the world had ever seen. Behind the desk in Manchester sat not a businessman, but a strategist, one who knew that even within the system, he could work quietly to help bring about its end. Throughout the 1850s and 60s, Friedrich Engels remained a steady and unwavering force behind Karl Marx's intellectual work. While Marx struggled with debt, illness, and family tragedies in London, Engels stood by him not only as a friend and collaborator, but as a lifeline. Engels used much of his income from the Manchester textile firm to support the Marx household, often sending funds for rent, food, and medicine. This support went far beyond money. Engels also became a key editor, critic, and reader of Marx's most ambitious project, Das Kapital. Marx worked slowly and meticulously on the manuscript, often caught between expansive ideas and practical limitations. Engels helped clarify arguments, verify data, and ensure the material stayed grounded in real-world economic practice. His own business experience made him invaluable in identifying inconsistencies or strengthening examples. Their letters from this period reveal a rich dialogue, Engels questioning phrasing, offering suggestions, and encouraging Marx to keep pushing forward. He was at once a scholar, an editor, and a steady source of confidence. When Das Kapital, Volume 1, was finally published in 1867, it bore the singular name of Karl Marx, but its backbone owed much to Engels' invisible labor. Meanwhile, Engels maintained his silence about his sacrifices. He neither sought credit nor resented his role. To him, the mission mattered more than ego. In supporting Marx's family and nurturing the completion of Das Kapital, he reinforced their shared vision, a world where the chains of exploitation would be broken not by lone heroes, but by collective force and clarity of thought. After Karl Marx passed away in 1883, Friedrich Engels became the guardian of their shared intellectual legacy. No longer in the background, Engels stepped into a more visible and active role, guiding the growing socialist movement across Europe and beyond. His leadership was not sought, but it was needed, and he accepted it with quiet determination. Engels dedicated himself to organizing Marx's unpublished notes, correspondences, and unfinished volumes of Das Kapital. He edited and published the second volume in 1885, followed by the third in 1894. These works were monumental tasks, demanding both precision and deep familiarity with Marx's theories. Engels approached them not just as an editor, but as a collaborator fulfilling a promise. Beyond his editorial work, Engels became an international strategist. He corresponded with socialist groups in France, Germany, Italy, and Russia, advising on tactics, philosophy, and political organization. Though in his 60s and suffering from declining health, he remained intellectually sharp and deeply engaged with workers' parties across Europe. Engels also continued to write independently. His essays on family, state power, and historical materialism expanded the Marxist framework and influenced generations of thinkers. One of his most influential texts, The Origin of the Family, Private Property and the State, bridged anthropology and political theory with groundbreaking clarity. In these later years, Engels emerged as more than a theorist. He became a teacher, mentor, and elder statesman of a movement he helped ignite. Though the world around him changed rapidly, with new ideologies, conflicts, and alliances, Engels held firm to the core idea that history was shaped not by kings or gods, but by the hands of ordinary people. In his final decade, Friedrich Engels became both a living symbol and an active architect of international socialism. Residing in London, he welcomed visitors from across Europe, young activists, labor leaders, and writers, all eager to learn from the man who had stood beside Karl Marx through the birth of a global movement. Engels took time to advise, encourage, and critique, shaping the direction of socialist parties long before they gained mainstream traction. Even as he aged, Engels remained a formidable writer. His later works reflected a growing interest in science, anthropology, and the intersections between material history and human development. He rejected rigid dogma and encouraged flexibility in political strategy, believing that socialism had to adapt to the real conditions of each country. He was pragmatic, yet unshakable in his belief that the working class must lead the path toward justice. Privately, Engels maintained a warm and humorous personality. He hosted lively gatherings filled with conversation, wine, and wit. Though often surrounded by politics, he valued loyalty, friendship, and intellectual honesty above all. He remained devoted to the memory of Mary Burns and later her sister, Lydia, treating them both as life companions whose insight had grounded his beliefs in the struggles of real people. By the late 1880s, Engels had become a trusted advisor to the Second International, a network of socialist and labor parties spanning the globe. His influence stretched far beyond theory. He mentored a generation of revolutionaries who would carry his and Marx's ideas into the 20th century. Even critics of socialism acknowledged his impact. He had transformed from the rebellious son of an industrialist into one of history's most enduring political thinkers. His legacy lived not in monuments, but in movements, in strikes, speeches, and solidarity across borders. For those who carried forward the dream of equality, Engels remained a guiding presence, reminding them that ideas only matter when lived, shared, and fought for with clarity and courage. In the final chapter of his life, Friedrich Engels remained deeply engaged with the cause he had nurtured for decades. Even as illness began to claim his strength, he continued to write, edit, and correspond, determined to leave no loose ends in the revolutionary vision he had helped craft. he had already ensured the preservation of Karl Marx's major works. But now, he focused on mentoring a new generation and clarifying core principles for future leaders. Engels passed away on the 5th of August in the year 1895 after a prolonged battle with throat cancer. He died in London, surrounded by comrades who had admired his dedication and intellect. In accordance with his wishes, his ashes were scattered off the coast of Eastbourne in the English Channel, a simple farewell for a man who never craved glory, only change. His death marked the end of an era, but not of influence. Across Europe, tributes poured in from labor organizations, socialist parties, and newspapers. In Germany, France, and Russia, Engels was remembered not just as a co-author or supporter of Marx, but as a leader in his own right, one who had shaped the political conscience of an age. Over the following decades, Engels' ideas would travel further than even he could have imagined. His writings inspired revolutionaries in Russia, union organizers in the United States, and anti-colonial thinkers across Africa and Asia. Though critics debated the interpretations of his work, few questioned its reach. Even today, the name Friedrich Engels continues to spark reflection, controversy, and hope. His partnership with Karl Marx became more than intellectual history. It became a testament to loyalty, courage, and the belief that a better world is not only possible, but worth fighting for. The industrialist's son who sided with workers left behind no empire, but a legacy that endures in movements for justice across the globe. What do you think about Karl Marx? Was Marx a visionary thinker, a tireless writer who challenged the might of empires with the stroke of a pen, reshaping how generations understand class, power, and history? Or a tragic rebel plagued by poverty, illness, and rejection, whose genius was only truly recognized after his death? And what about Friedrich Engels? Was Engels the loyal strategist, a man of privilege who gave it all up to stand with the oppressed, who worked in silence so a revolution could speak louder? Or was he the overlooked architect, forever in Marx's shadow, remembered more as a helper than as a mind who shaped socialism on his own? We would love to hear your thoughts. Were these men builders of a better future, or dreamers chasing a world that never came? Did they expose the silent struggles of the working class, or become symbols of ideas too vast to fully grasp? Their words stirred movements, their bond defied class. Their legacy endures. Let us know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful tales from the past, stories of courage, choice, and the quiet force behind history. Thank you so much for watching.